Recently, I saw something on Twitter. A lady, very cerebral, she's very intelligent. I think she graduated with a first class, I think from the University of Lagos. So she mentioned that, why do we have to attend interviews? Why don't we just write essays? Write essays, write exams, and then get the roles that we want. Why do we necessarily have to attend interviews? I used to think like this before. I belonged to the same school of thought, like, why is it necessary to attend interviews? And that was until because I run a non-profit organization, Homeless Not Hopeless Nigeria, and we wanted to select a number of volunteers. We needed 22 volunteers actually, and we received about 220 applications. They had written essays. They had a kind of exam as well, which we had graded, my team members and myself. But we needed to meet them personally. We needed to hear their stories. We needed to know where they were coming from, where they believe that they would go to in the next 5 years, how passionate they are about the issue of homelessness, which we are very passionate about. So we needed to meet them in person, and we decided to have an interview. What the interview did for us, because normally I'm not somebody who really puts gender parity at the top of my list. I go for competence. As long as you are competent, I don't care if I have 20 males on my team or 20 females. But what the interview gave us was that at the end of the interview, we realized that we were able to get 11 females and 11 males. And we didn't plan it. But because of the way they portrayed themselves during the interview, we were able to achieve that. So that's the importance of having an interview in my own thoughts. That's just one of the advantages. There are numerous advantages to it. So you may feel that, it's very difficult, but at the end of the day, when you prepare well for it, you would find yourself beginning to love the interview process. In 2021, when I applied for the Doha Debates Ambassador Program, it's a career development program for undergraduate students across the world. I was privileged to be one of the only 2 Nigerians selected, but I didn't attempt my interview very well because I write essays a lot. I had turned in my essay application, and it had been graded. But when I went for the interview, 2 other students, a guy from the US and a lady from India, were interviewed alongside myself. So I already knew that I was the lowest performing candidate for that opportunity. I knew myself because I couldn't even really express myself very well. But I put in effort since then, and in 2022, 2023, now I'm in 400 level, and I've been able to get other opportunities which were interview-based without much hassles. Yeah. So when you attend an interview, the first thing that the interviewer asks of you is, tell me about yourself. That's the generic question. Tell me about yourself. So I attended the NHEF interview earlier this year, and I was asked that same question. What I did was that I rambled on. I talked a lot. I think I spoke for like 3 minutes. Then the interviewer told me at the end of the interview that you shouldn't have done that. You should have started with an elevator pitch. So that's the first thing that interviewers watch out for, an elevator pitch. So it's, people in the corporate world, it's as though they've been indoctrinated to attend to their interviewers using a particular format. So they expect more often than not that you begin with an elevator pitch. And what's an elevator pitch? An elevator pitch is introductory framework about yourself that shouldn't exceed 30 seconds to 60 seconds. So in 30 to 60 seconds, you should be done. So, and what an elevator pitch consists of is your name, what you do, your goals, the things that you've been able to achieve, where you see yourself in a number of years, and how passionate you are about a course, if you want to add that to it, and what you intend to gain from this organization that you are having an interview with. So in 30 seconds to 60 seconds, you are done. So when I came in, I spoke with John Olorunfemi, and I would love that you give him the mic. So I would ask him the question, and he introduces himself. So because he gave an elevator pitch, and I listened to it.
Hi everyone, I am John Olorunfemi, a final year law student at the University of Ibadan with core interest in finance. I currently serve as the president of the Student Finance Club at the University of Ibadan, where I've been able to nurture my interest in finance for the past 4 years. In addition, I serve as the head of finance for NH Club at the University of Ibadan. I'm here today because of the opportunity it gives me to be able to lay my impacts to other co-learners and also club being a sister club to the Student Finance Club University gives us an opportunity to merge to create impact. Thank you.
So that's it. Within 30 to 60 seconds, he's done with his elevator pitch. So I can then ask follow-up questions from him. So that's one thing that you should take note of. Always start with an elevator pitch. It sets you aside. It sets you apart. It gives you a kind of leverage that other interviewees may not have. So now there are other questions that you should prepare for. They ask questions, basically generic questions. They are not so generic, but they are behavioral questions. They ask questions like, tell us about a time when you worked in a team. What did you do? Or what challenge have you faced in the past, and how have you navigated this challenge? So they do not necessarily want to know about this challenge, but they want to know about you. It is a question to be able to see who you are, how you engage challenges, and how you solve them, and how you collaborate with other people to actually solve these challenges. So what I do, and what I would advise that anyone does, and I think it is the standard approach to attempting this kind of behavioral question, is using the STAR approach. Yeah, the STAR approach is a situation, task, action, and results. And then there's another R. You can add another R to it, which is reflection. So you reflect on what you have done. So for example, if somebody should ask me in an interview, and I've been asked a few times, what time did you tell us about when you encountered a challenge, and what did you do to address this challenge? So I would begin by saying that, yeah, as the founder of a non-profit, in 2022, we wanted to have a sensitization walk. However, there were no finances. That was the situation. So what task am I to perform? So we intended to get funding from a number of high-standing individuals in society. That's the task that we were to perform. What's the action? So we wrote letters to them, and a lot of them committed to funding our sensitization walk. That's the action. We've done the action. However, you should try to spice it up a little bit to show that something actually happened and you were able to navigate a challenge. And you don't necessarily have to lie. You just tell as things have gone. So a week to the sensitization walk, a number of our proposed funders pulled out and refused to send in their committed finance. So what did we do? We had to do something else. So you are going back to action now. So I had to leverage on relationships that I had with family members and get funding from them. So what was the result? We were able to have a sensitization walk, which reached about 500 individuals physically and about 5,000 people online. And reflecting on that, so you are adding the reflection now. And as a reflection point, I have learned not to focus too much on one source of funding. I have learned to expand my tentacles and get funding from as many as possible places. So that's the reflection that you've had. So this is just like an example that I'm giving to you, but you should try to relate it to something that you've done. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You shouldn't have done too much, because you might, or you may also be shooting yourself in the leg by claiming that you've done too much when you've not really done a lot. So maybe you volunteer with, or you are a chorister in your church, and there was a time that your mic, the mic in your church was defective, it was faulty. What did you do? So you knew that mics use batteries, for instance. So the situation was that mics were defective in your church, and choristers could not sing, and there was no money. There was nowhere to get money from. So you knew that something had to be done about those mics that were defective. So what did you do? You had an experience growing up. You knew that mics use batteries. And those batteries that have been used prior to that time that the mics started having defects were substandard. So what did you do? You took money from your pocket and you bought some batteries. You bought some batteries, put it in the mic, and they started working. So little things like that, it shows that you are innovative. You can spot problems and actually solve them. So yeah, that's it. And try as much as possible to be practical in your answers when you are being asked. Try to relate the question to yourself. And one thing that you should try as much as possible to do is to make yourself likable, first of all. For instance, because I was formerly the programs manager for the Antimicrobial Resistance Club, University of Ibadan. So we attended an interview, 4 of us. We were seeking funding from an international organization. So when we asked to introduce ourselves, after introducing myself, what I said was that it's quite sunny here in Nigeria today. Because I have read that people in the UK, when they meet, they love talking about the weather. So I tried to relate with that. So the lady said, oh, it's quite damp I think maybe she was in Liverpool or somewhere. It's quite damp in Liverpool today. So we connected that way. So we were able to talk for a long time, although we didn't get it. We didn't get the funding, but we were able to have a very good conversation. And at the end of the because they would send the results of your interview and all, we did very well, but not everybody would get the funding. So try to make yourself likable. People tend to give opportunities to those that they like. Yeah. So, and there are some common mistakes that you should try to avoid. So I attended an interview once. If I had gotten the opportunity, I would have gone to Abuja. I had not taken my first flight around that time. I was in 200 level at the time, or to take a flight now outside of the country, in country. So I would have gone earlier. I would have had my first flight, which would have been a flex for me. Low income, first time in an aeroplane. Yeah. So, but I couldn't go, although I passed the essay stage and all. But when the lady asked some questions, it's either I responded by giving too little information or too much information. So there are some questions that were asked. I didn't say much because I didn't really know much about the organization. I didn't know much about their vision, their mission. I hadn't researched enough. So that's one thing that you should try to do. Try as much as possible to research about the company, the organization, the scholarship that you are applying for, and then don't give too little information and don't give too much information. Number 2, don't speak too quickly and don't speak too slowly. So I don't know if I'm speaking too slowly now, but yeah. And I know I'm not speaking too quickly, but I don't know if I'm speaking too slowly, and if that will affect your assessment of this interview that I'm having. So, and the third thing is that you should try to make sure as much as possible that you are a perfect fit for the role or for the company, because what they try to do is that they try to employ people or give opportunities to those who align with a particular framework or structure that they already have. So if you do not align with it, no matter how good you are, they may not give you the opportunity. So whatever question you are answering, try to relate it, try to extrapolate it at the end of the day to what the company does. So show that they are on the front burner in your mind, that whatever you are saying is for them. So, and the last Never leave an interview without asking a question. Never leave an interview without asking a question. They are going to ask you at the end of the interview if you have any question. So, as much as possible, ensure that you ask a question. Do not say that you don't have any question. And I would suggest that you ask 2 questions. The first question should be a pre-planned question, a question that you've planned beforehand that you were going to ask the interviewer. For example, you can ask about the company ethics, or what does it mean to get the scholarship? People who have gotten it before, what have they been exposed to, which may not be in the view of the public, but you would love to know from the interviewer. But let's say when having your conversation with the interviewer, they mentioned something. Maybe during your conversation, they mentioned that, okay, they were once in, let's say, the literary and debating society in their university when they were in their undergraduate year. So what you can do is that you try to pick that point that they've made and you relate it to, you turn it into a question. You ask, for instance, that, okay, when you were in school, you were in the literary and debating society, how were you able to combine your academics with this? How were you able to do this? So it puts them also on the hot seat. What it does for you is that you've been on the hot seat all the while. So it put them also on the hot seat. So they can see that what this guy has been doing, the questions that he has been answering have not been so easy for him. So because they now have to do the same thing for you. And because people love to talk about themselves so much, you also give them an opportunity to talk about themselves. So at the end of the day, it makes you, to a certain degree, likable. And remember, and this is the close of this session, people give opportunities to those they like.